Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to analyze Alphabet's most recent earnings report, specifically its revenue, and I'm going to show you how you can do this using a donut chart and putting more information into your legend to make it more user friendly. Now you might be tempted initially to just put this into a pie chart. If I grab this data, go to Insert, select the pie chart, and we've got our breakdown of revenue that way. We can even add labels here. But what I don't like about this is that there's not an easy way to map everything to what's what. Like we've got the different colors, and sure we can connect it through that way. We can hover over it, wait for it to see, but it's not as nice as it could be, not as useful as it could be. So I'm going to show you how we can do this with a donut chart to make it more useful and to put more information into this legend here to make it a better use of that as opposed to having to rely on labels. So I'm going to delete this, and anytime you're creating a pie chart or a donut chart, I would suggest sorting your data. So if I go to the data tab, hitting the option to sort from largest to smallest. And this is helpful because that means your first slice on your chart is going to be your largest, and then it's going to be smaller and smaller. So it looks a lot cleaner than having a large slice, than a smaller one, then a large one again. And it can be a bit harder to track what's what. So that's the first thing. Next thing I'm going to do is create another column for my labels. And this is what I want to show up, to display in my pie chart, so it's easy for my readers to see the information. So I'm going to set this equal to the category name, and I'm going to use the ampersand to connect this, and I'm going to put a space here, connect this with a calculation. So I'm going to take this revenue number, divide it by the total revenue number. I'm going to freeze that cell, and that's going to give me a percentage, and I'm going to use the text function to specify how I want it to be formatted. So it's going to take this value, B3 divided by B12, and then the way I want it formatted is, let's say, 0.0%. And so that means it's going to show the percentage with one decimal point. So we got Google search, another 57.1%. If I copy this down, I've got that detail on there. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is create a donut chart. Now, I'm going to create it just by selecting these values, and the way you'd normally create a chart. Right, so nothing special here. And the reason I'm doing it this way is I actually want to use this as this column here as my legend, as opposed to this one. But if I were to grab this and this column, then Excel's not going to recognize it properly. So first I'm going to do the more conventional way, where we're just selecting the labels on the left, the values on the right, and selecting it that way. Now, once I've got it in here and Excel's recognize this properly as a donut chart, now I'm going to do is right click, select data, and where I've got these categories, I'm going to hit edit, and I'm going to replace them with these categories that I've just created. All right, and so as you can see, now I've got my values with those percentages in there. So it's a lot more, there's a lot more information in there, and they're already sorted from largest to smallest. Now, one thing I can do now is change the look of my legend here, and let's say I want to put it off to the right. And so now, just like this, I've got my legend, it's got my major categories, and they're all sorted from largest to smallest. And so what I can do now is basically put this right within my donut chart. And so obviously I can play around with this and stretch this out to make this look a bit different. Let's say center this. But the main idea is, now I've got my labels in here. Get rid of this title. And, now I've got a much easier way to display my labels and my data, because I know it's going from largest to smallest. I've got all that detail. And so it also gives me less of a reason to worry about the colors as well. So I could change the colors so they're a bit more subtle. Let's say using the faded blue. And then it's not as important to say, okay, what's matching up to what, because I know the largest slice is going to be Google Search and Other, followed by Google Other, Cloud, Network. So I've got all that detail without necessarily having to put labels into these. So it's just another way where you can display your data, right? And so obviously you can manipulate this around. One thing you can also do with a donut chart is if I right click, Format Data Series, I can change the size of this donut hole. So I can make it larger if I want to, or I can make it or smaller or larger depending on how much information I want to put in here. But as you can see, it gives you a bit more flexibility and just gives you another way to display your data without maybe just the conventional pie chart. So if you've got a pie chart, I would suggest using it if you've got a handful of items. If you've got 7 or 8 more items than that, then maybe consider using a donut chart look like this, and putting more information into your labels. And then now that it's sorted, it's a lot easier to see that information. So a quick recap of what I did here. The main thing was really just to sort this from largest to smallest, create those custom labels, using the existing categories, putting it as a percentage of total revenue, using that text function to format it as a percentage. But then when creating the initial chart, grabbing this data as opposed to this data. Just because if you do it this way, Excel's not going to interpret it properly, and it's not going to look the way you want it to. So if you do it this way, and then just edit your categories and select the custom ones you created, and then you can have a donut chart that gives you a bit of a cleaner look and an easier way to sort your data and see what percentages were related to which items. And again, you still have the ability to add labels on here, but especially when you've got quite a few items on here, you don't have to worry about whether they're too crowded, or if you can fit in all the information, because a lot of times you're creating these labels and you may be trying to manipulate it to put in the exact right place and fit it in a way that makes sense. But by putting it in your legend, you have a nice neat setup where you can put the information that you want, and not lose the attractive visual of the donut chart. So hope you found this video useful, and thank you so much for watching.